morning, everyone. How are we doing today? Yeah, great. I'm happy for the enthusiasm. I know it's bright and early, so I want to thank you all for coming out to join us as we discuss creating imaginative new worlds, specifically for the middle grade range with our imprint paper cuts. How many of you have heard of paper cuts before? All right, yeah, loyal fans, we love to see it. For those of you who are new to Paper Cuts is the middle grade imprint of Mad Cave Studios, dedicated to publishing great graphic novels for all ages. Popular with reluctant readers and gifted readers alike, Paper Cuts graphic novels for kids, tweens, and teens include a wide range of genres, including humor, action-adventure, mystery, horror, and favorite characters. Today we're going to be diving into some of the buzziest titles from Paper Cuts hitting your local bookshop and library this fall. So before I begin, I would like to do a round of introductions, and that's me in the corner. My name is Maya. I am the marketing manager. Thank you. My name is Maya Lopez. I'm the marketing manager for Mad Cave Studios. I've been with the company since November of 2021, and I'm very happy to be here with you all today discussing Paper Cuts. I'm actually going to go ahead and go down the line for a round of introductions from our creators and editorial team. Do you want to start, Ernie?
Sure. My name is Ernie Naheda. I'm an illustrator for DLOD, or Digital Lizards of Doom. I prefer saying Digital Lizards of Doom because it just sounds cooler. It's more complicated, but yeah, I'm just the illustrator.
My name is Dan Brozo. I am the co-writer and producer of these books here. I'm sitting next to Gabe here.
My name is Gabriel Valentin, and I am the writer and producer of Digital Lizards of Doom. And creator of Digital Lizards of Doom.
Lots of hats.
I like the system better of passing the mic, honestly. Hi, I'm Stephanie. I am an editor with Paper Cuts. So I've worked on a lot of our titles since 2021, like Yogs, Jackson's Wilder Adventures, Heebie Jeebies, and The Loud House and Casagrandes, but also just a bunch more that can't be listed because I don't have the time. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm just super happy to be here. Thank you for joining us. Do you want this? Yeah.
Hi, I'm Kim Shearer. I'm an English teacher and librarian by day, and I'm also one of the co-authors for Double Booking, and I'm Chaz's big sister.
Hey there, I'm Chaz Pangburn. I'm the younger brother of Kim, obviously, but I'm a writer, editor, and letterer at Mad Cave Studios, as well as Paper Cuts. I primarily work on licensed titles for Gatchaman, Dick Tracy, Flash Gordon, as well as a bunch of Disney titles we'll see in just a few minutes here.
All right, thank you all so much. And I'd love to go ahead and dive right into it and hear about some of the upcoming books from our creators in their own words. So I'd love to start off with Double Booking Volume 1, The Tale of the Mummy Cat, which is currently available.
So Double Booking is a double-sided flip book. It is about two siblings who go on an adventure in Egypt. The first side is the perspective of the younger brother, Otto. He's youthful, he's imaginative, and he can see supernatural elements. When you flip the book, it is actually his older sister, Nan's perspective. Nan is a realist, she's cynical, she cannot see these supernatural elements like a mummy cat gone rogue. So it's really an exercise in perspective. It's the same adventure technically, but both sides are quite different, and our amazing artist, Nick Torres, actually has two different art styles for the two perspectives.
Just one thing to add on to that, our editor was Stephanie. She did not list it in her list of books there, but she is the editor of this book as well.
All right, thank you so much, Chaz and Kim. And I'll go ahead and pass it along to our DLOD crew. So we actually have 2 volumes of Digital Lizards of Doom available at booth 241. And something that I'm going to enthuse about a little bit really quickly is Digital Lizards of Doom with each novel that releases actually has a different art style based on the character that we're following. And I'll, again, pass it back to you.
So Digital Lizards of Doom is a action adventure built for kids between the ages of 7 to 12. And I really wanted to make something that that had good values and taught them, things that they need to take with them into the real world about, how to identify your emotions, how to control your emotions, how to be aware and in a very chaotic world, as we all know. So, but doing that is a very daunting task because that can come off as very boring. So I wanted to come up with something that had like the spirit of, Star Wars, or we've gotten Dr. Seuss a lot, which in a weird way is a huge inspiration for me, but something that's very silly and fun, but at the end of the book, you've kind of like a magnet just kind of picked up all of these really cool things that you didn't really catch the first time around. So in a nutshell, that's what Digital Lizards of Doom is about. And yes, we have a curriculum that comes out with every single volume.
Yeah, it's really exciting too, getting to have that direct experience in classrooms. Did you want to talk a little bit more about your curriculum with DLOD?
Sure, yeah. So the curriculum, like the books, is based on social emotional learning, critical thinking, and problem solving. So each character in the book represents a different emotion and or attribute that we all have as human beings, like anger, wanting to control, jealousy, joy, all of these things. So basically, the curriculum identifies these different issues and then helps break it down so that the children and students who are reading the book have a chance to further explore those attributes rather than just, glazing over it through the story. So you can read the story on its own. You don't need the curriculum. But also at the same time, if you want to dive deeper into it, it's a lot of fun and kids really like it. And we're actually using it right now in the San Diego Unified School District. They just ordered a bunch of copies, and Boys and Girls Club as well has ordered some for some of their sites. So we're getting a lot of feedback. It's really cool.
Yeah, we are super, super excited about it. I am going to go ahead and now pass things along to Stephanie Brooks, who is our editor. And we're going to go ahead and talk about a few extra titles you might be seeing on your shelves this summer and fall that you might also be able to find over at booth 241. So we're going to go ahead and kick off with the Loud House Spooky Special.
Hello! So the Loud House Spooky Special is actually not yet at our booth, although you can find Loud House Volume 20 and the Casa Grandes Volume 6. The Loud House Spooky Special comes out in July, and that is a fantastic themed volume, not numbered. Anyone can pick it up. It works with the show team, so it has people who worked as animators and writers on the show of The Loud House, which has been going on now for 8 years. To work on these books, so you read it and it feels like the TV show. If kids like the TV show, it's a great introduction for people who I would say are reluctant readers. Transmedia, you can transition from the TV show to the book. It has a fun interactive component. As you can see, it leans into the spookalicious, which is a word that Matthew Ehrman came up with for heebie-jeebies, but it's just a really fantastic word, I think, for a bunch of our middle grade titles. Thank you, Matthew.
Yeah, thank you. Invented a new genre.
He really invented a new genre there. But yeah, you can see it plays with imagination. It plays with horror. On the far left, that is Mavis, the librarian character that shows up in the Casa Grandes, who's giving them a spooky story time. With the candy goblin who shows up in the Casa Grandes to sort of steal candy or haunt children for taking more than one piece of candy from the candy bowl. A fear that many people should have, because I am definitely guilty of considering that second candy.
All right, thank you so much, Stephanie. I also wanted to chat a little bit about 2 upcoming books, Jackson's Wilder Adventures Volume 1 and Jackson's Dinner Adventure.
So yeah, Jackson's Wilder Adventures is a delightful little series written and drawn by Sarah Davidson, Georgia local, if you're interested in the states of where our creators come from. Sarah Davidson actually dedicated this to her nephew, a boy named Jackson. Fun fact. And the story follows Jackson and his best friend, Erwin the thylacine, a stuffed animal that teaches him how to cope with like everyday problems through educational facts about animals. So in each book, it's broken down into two like sub-adventures. And the first one is his dinner adventure, where his dad makes disgusting leftover casserole. It's so nasty. He doesn't even need to eat it to know it's the worst food ever to exist. And then Erwin, of course, comes along and is like, hey, animals also eat really nasty things. I hope you know. I bet that casserole is actually better if you gave it a chance. And then the second one, which I think hits on the title, Habits and Habitats, is about moving and talks about climate change and the ways in which animals are being forced to migrate as the environment changes around them. So it's a very fun educational book with some serious tones to it as well. It has activities. It's so cute, and it's got all of its facts about animals verified by an animal expert, Kelly Thompson. So yeah, I'd really recommend it for any of the people who love animals in your life.
Also for people who might love Erwin, because who would not love that cute and friendly little face? The next title up is going to be Yogs, which is by critically acclaimed cartoonist Art Baltazar. Yogs Volume 1 follows the Craynobi in the Craynobi Tales, and this was actually the first ever comic written by Art Baltazar. So to be able to team up with Art and bring these comics to life was such an immense privilege. When you write your first comic, it's something that's so deeply personal, and you can really see his personality shine through as you follow the Craynobi on their mission to protect the island of the Crays. So I'm going to go ahead and pop through, and you can see Art's signature art style, which is so vivid, so round, and so friendly to reluctant readers as they follow this really action-packed and fun journey. We do have the newly released Yogs Volume 2, The Gouache Wars, and actually that one is going to be coming out on August 6th, and the Gouache Wars actually follow the Craynobi as they aim to fight off the gouache monsters that are descending onto Cray City. So again, the adventure continues. What's really also very interesting is Art has almost created this like language with the Cray. Do you want to talk about that a little bit more, Stephanie? I don't want to put you on the spot, so it's totally cool.
I mean, I think with Art Baltazar, he has such a joy with language, and he actually does the lettering for his own book, so that like funky, handwritten, bright style, that's all him. And it's sort of like the words have mouthfeel almost. They let you play and explore and sort of try to sound out what they are. Yogs, yags, gouache, weezard the wizard. It plays on words that exist. It plays on fun sounds and sound effects. And it's like the kind of book that would be so enjoyable for a read-aloud story and active class participation.
Yeah, and actually to follow up on that too, we have, in collaboration with Art, created a Create Your Own Cray worksheet, which is awesome because once new readers get into it, they can create their own characters, and it just engages them in a totally new way that really inspires that more creative side. Next up, we have Heebie-Jeebies, which will be out on September 17th, just in time for spooky season, or I guess I should say spookalicious season. And Stephanie, did you want to chat about Heebie-Jeebies a little?
Of course. I am nothing if not a talker, so I hope you really like my voice. Heebie-Jeebies is one of our upcoming middle grade titles. As described earlier, it is spookalicious. It follows sort of the less cool social outcast kids, Blue and Herschel. They're kind of bullied because they're different. quite simply. And they discover that underneath their school, Amberlin Middle School, there is buried treasure. And obviously, buried treasure is the thing that would make them the coolest kids in school if they can find it. So they go in and they break into their school at night to discover where this buried treasure is. But unbeknownst to them, the school is haunted, and the treasure, in fact, is haunted by a lot of ghosts from different time periods. So you have like the funky disco dance teacher, you have the cool librarian with her two-headed dog ghost, you've got this principal from like the World War II era. It's a really old legacy school that has like a lot of history and experience and exploration, and that makes it sound like a very serious book, but it's a very fun, goofy book with a couple fart jokes, which I'm gonna say I'm not a fan of fart jokes, but everyone loves fart. For some reason, fart jokes are just really funny, so you have to highlight the joys of fart jokes. And in preparation for the book, we're going to be releasing this really fantastic little webcomic that the creators made that talks about a totally original, never been done before, video game that's specific for the books called Cranky the Quillhog. A very fast quillhog that collects coins. And in the book itself, there's actually a coin search that you can have readers interact with and engage with. And at the end is a key that shows you where all the coins are. So for your eagle-eyed readers who like to look at every single page, flip through it, reread that book, it's 184 pages, and there are like 10 cranky coins hidden throughout for some extra fun.
I think that's so much fun because I think it really invites readers to pick up the book and just really dive deeper than they might have the first time around. And I think across genres and across different kinds of books, whether they're graphic novels or prose, or in any media, whenever you do have that reread or rewatch, you always end up taking away so much more from the story and something different from when you read it the first time around. So I love that for Heebie-Jeebies. And we do have a couple of exciting license titles that we are going to be launching a little bit later in the year as well. So in October 15th, we have Miraculous Ladybug Chibi Volume 1 coming out. So with that media tie-in, early readers would really love, early readers who are fans of Miraculous can easily jump into this chibi version where you have Ladybug and Chat Noir going on zany little adventures, really, really cute, lots of fun. And then we also have the Flash Gordon Adventures coming out with Art Baltazar. This one we're really excited about. It's the Flash Gordon that we know and love, but in a little bite size for everyone, because we want to create a Flash for everyone. With the Flash Gordon Adventures, we have Art's signature style with a classic Flash Gordon story. And I actually have a little sneak peek at some of the character designs that you may know and love in that cute little middle grade friendly art style. Just a moment of appreciation for the tiny and very evil Ming. I don't know how he contains all that evil in that little body. And finally, I would love to chat about Lost in the Future Volume 1. This is the newest announced title from Paper Cuts, releasing on November 26th of this year. We follow a group who are on a school field trip to an ancient castle when it goes terribly awry, and they actually end up falling through a portal that takes them into a very dangerous future. The colors are vibrant, it's action-packed, and they do face some pretty terrifying situations throughout the graphic novel, and it's ultimately up to them to work together in order to overcome the dangers that they're facing and to make their way back to where they came from. Now, one of the most exciting announcements of the year is our new partnership with Disney. We are going to be publishing a few favorite Disney titles that we may all know and love. And for this, I'm going to go ahead and pass it along to Chaz Pangburn, our editor for some of these Disney titles, as we dive right into the new adventures of Encanto.
Hey there, everyone. Just to kind of let you know, we do have around 30 Disney titles coming out over the next year and a half. It's a big, nice mix of different types of content. Starting off with, we're going to talk about the New Adventures of series. This first book here is The New Adventures of Encanto. It is 4 20-page stories that do further expand upon the world of the film. The next book on the next slide we have after this is also Turning Red. Essentially, with both of these books, you'll notice that the art style is a little bit different than what you see in the film. We are allowed to play a little bit more. We're allowed to push these characters into new and exciting new adventures to make things a little bit bigger than what the film was. So there's Turning Red there as well. With this whole New Adventures of line, we are doing that for 10 different properties over the next few years here. And with these smaller bite-sized stories, they do have different topics that kind of really do fully expand upon each world. Moving up on the next book here, though, there is Frozen Olaf's Complete Comic Collection. This is an early reader's book with very smaller bite-sized stories that are anywhere between 1 and 8 pages each. With all of these, they are geared towards early readers, so they have the verbiage that's a little bit more easier to get into. With Disney Fairies, this is a 4-in-1 bind-up of classic Disney Fairy stories that did come out through paper cuts back in 2010 to about 2015. There was about 16 books in the entire line, so we are putting together in multiple collections like this. A great value and bang for your buck, with each book being around 270 pages each. Next up is the Phineas and Ferb collection. And with these are originally comics that were in the Phineas and Ferb magazine that ran for close to 10 years. Each story is anywhere between 2 pages and around maybe 16 or so. They can be a little bit longer at different times, but we are collecting all those in the original release order from the original magazines, and they've never been presented in that fashion before. I do think it's important to note, too, that there is going to be a Phineas and Ferb reboot that's coming out soon. I'm not spoiling anything that was previously announced, but we are tying into that with this previous collection here, a few other collections, and also an original graphic novel, too. Next up is D is for Dalmatians, which is another early readers title. If you look in the top right corner, you'll see a little logo that says Kids Comics. That's something we've been pushing for here at Mad Cave and Paper Cuts to make sure that we highlight the books that are for early readers. So if and when you see that symbol, that means it's for early readers. You should cut gun after that there. So it figured maybe 3 to 5 for the age range there. But with this story, it does actually expand upon the world of 101 Dalmatian Street, which is now on Disney+. Really great, easy, bite-sized stories. Each one's about 8 pages each, but then there's also little fun activities within each little chapter. And then next up here is The New Adventures of Inside Out 2, which does tie into the recent film that just came out like a week and a half ago. With this does fully expand upon the film yet again. And you notice I keep on saying that. And the whole reason being is a lot of time with licensed books, they don't let you play. They don't let you expand upon the worlds or create new characters or new different situations. In all of these books, they do let us do that. Hence the title New Adventures of.
All right. Thank you so much, Chaz and Stephanie, and to all of our panelists for giving such wonderful explanations and really diving and sharing about the worlds that we're creating together. I'd love to kind of pick your brains a little bit. And to start out, I want to start out by asking, what is the importance of creating great stories for middle grade and all ages in general? Whoever would like to start, Kim?
I think that age in particular, having been in the classroom, being now in the library, we know that this is the age where we lose a lot of readers. That transition from elementary to middle, our readers start to drop off. And I know just from that perspective, I think that's why it's so important to have engaging stories that all students can see themselves in. We need to keep those readers. So I think that's really particularly important. And something that I'm pretty passionate about, I find myself discussing this a lot, that idea too that a lot of students with that transition, they become discouraged. Reading sometimes begins to lose its personal reading for pleasure component, and it starts to feel more pressured, more academic, and so a lot of kids get turned off and start to feel a little bit more insecure about that. And the great thing about comics is that they are in fact accessible all readers, our reluctant readers, our readers who, for whom English is not their first language, our advanced readers. And so it's one of those things where all kids come to the table when it's a comic on that level playing field. So they're engaging, they help kids transition, maintain their love of reading, and it also has that ability to help kids maintain their confidence, I think, as they go through that age group. So I think it's such a great time and a wonderful audience to write for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of want to add on to that, like you say, graphic novels and comic books are the great equalizer when it comes to reading. And what's really special is when we foster a love of reading in middle grade students, younger students, they often develop into adults who love to read too. And we just kind of keep on fostering that love within the community. And yeah, we just kind of keep it going. Stephanie, did you want to add anything, or Gabe?
I'm going to be honest, I feel like Kim said all of those words that I would have said, but significantly better. I'm just going to digest what she said, I think. It was really fantastic.
It was very wise, yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
I agree. I mean, I remember when I was a kid and I couldn't wait to dive into the next adventure. I still remember the first novel I ever read was Young Indiana Jones Volume 3. I picked it up at a library down the street from myself. And yeah, I didn't know, my brain was so hyperactive and I was always wild, running around doing crazy stuff. And I didn't realize there were stories out here that could transport my brain and my mind to a different place. And it allowed me to focus on something and really go on a journey that I felt like only I was going on myself, So I want to, with Digital Lizards of Doom, I want to give that back. I want to allow other kids that are that age to have something that they can hold on to, that they feel like is their own, and it speaks in their own language, and that's really important to me.
Yeah.
Also, I think we're trying to create a story here that doesn't talk down to anybody. I feel like when I was a kid, there's so much content that was not meeting me at my level, but it was trying to cast a really wide net to get as many readers as it could or viewers as it could. And I think what we're trying to do here is meet the kids at their level. Yeah. I think a lot of the books at Paper Cuts do that too. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And to follow up on that, I think some of the most impactful stories that are for children are the ones that don't water down their ideas and, like you said, meet kids where they're at and treats the reader with respect. So, Ernie, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I think the only thing I would add, everyone said everything so perfectly, so I'm like, oh man, I don't have anything to say. Everyone said everything. But I think the biggest thing that I did love hearing, was that it helps people who speak another language transition into the language that they're trying to speak or where they're at. It's a big motivator, especially because we don't talk down to people. So when they pick one of our books up, they're like, oh, this is great, it's a fun story, and no one looks down at me for reading it. It's not like I'm picking up a little kid's book, I'm picking up a fun adventure. And so reading it even makes for adults, it's an easier transition for adults to learn to read and learn to know a new language.
Yeah, that's so excellent. We actually don't have it on our slideshow, but with Paper Cuts, we actually have the privilege of being the American publisher for Asterix. And one thing that we find when we come to different shows is people from all backgrounds and people from around the world recognize Asterix, and they're always like, I remember when I was reading this as a kid, but it was in French, or it was in Arabic, or it was in Spanish. And you have these stories that are so detailed that translate, they're like universal stories, basically. And in that way, it kind of brings us together, regardless of language barriers or what our backgrounds are. So I think that's really awesome. And yeah, that's great. Thank you. I wanted to follow this up with kind of a curveball. With Digital Lizards of Doom and Double Booking, I think these are two stories that really engage readers in a way that kind of prompts them to consider different perspectives. So I wanted to ask, how do you how do you teach empathy and showcase those different perspectives through graphic novels as a medium? All right, Kim, it's you.
That's a huge force behind double booking was really teaching readers, sharing with readers the idea that there's so much more to the world than what you see directly in front of you. We become very myopic, and so really the whole premise of the book was you have to read both sides in order to get all the information, to get the full picture. And so that was really what we tried to do, this idea of stepping outside yourself and considering a situation from someone else's perspective. So obviously with the physical flipping of the book, the two different art styles, that was really how we tried to use the book as a vehicle for promoting that empathy, that idea of compassion and thinking about how others might view the same situation. And as I mentioned previously, Nick Torres, our artist, came up with two different art styles, and he really put a lot of thought into playing with perspective. So the younger brother, Otto, is very imaginative. He's very youthful. So his side is very cartoony, bright colors. He's a details man. He's very into the small things in life, and he becomes, laser focused on them. So a lot of his panels are zoomed in, whereas Nan, his older sister, she's more experienced, she's more cynical, so her colors are a little more muted. Nick, our artist, actually used a brush that wouldn't allow him to draw rounded lines. She's all edges, all corners. And she's a big picture gal, much to her younger brother's dismay. And so a lot of her panels are wide shots and vistas, and she tends to take in the full view. So it's really just that idea of seeing the world outside of that lens that we tend to fall victim to.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kim.
Sorry, Gabe, can I cut you off before you started? I just want to add with Nick's art style, which Kim gave a very fantastic description of, there is this editorial where the artist talks a little bit about the art experience and his thought process with making it. And one of the fantastic things is also the height difference of Otto and Nan, the siblings, because on Nan's side, she sees herself as so much larger than her younger brother. Her younger brother is itty bitty shrimpy. And on Otto's side, the height difference is not nearly as significant. I don't know if you've ever stood near a child and talked to them, and sometimes they'll just be like, I am as tall as you, and they're saluting all the way up. But that was just a fantastic detail, and not to spoil anything, but there's this one moment on both sides where they do this fantastic kick, and the image is paralleled because while Nan is definitely much more realistic, she's sharper, they both still see themselves as the heroes of their own stories.
Absolutely. And Gabe?
Yeah, I think with Digital Lizards of Doom, I pulled from a lot of Irish myths and Greek mythology when I was writing the story. And coming up with the concept, and a lot of those stories teach us lessons by showing us parallels of characters who have similar tragedies happen to them, but they choose different paths, a darker path or a lighter path. And so a lot of characters in Digital Lizards of Doom will mirror each other. There's two characters that are hurt and have very they feel like they've been deceived or lied to or almost murdered, and so they want to seek revenge, and one character allows that to control her whole life, and another character fights that, and she wants to do the right thing even though wrong things have been done to her. And we have other characters who are so hyper-focused on one thing and want to control everything, but we get to see two parallels of a character who follows a darker path and follows a lighter path. So just in the same way that these myths and mythology have taught us so many things about our own humanity, I've tried to add a lot of that to this story in a digestible way that I don't think kids might find cool, in the first time they read it, like, oh, that's an interesting idea, that's really funny or whatever. But then when they're actually faced with that situation in real life, I'm hoping that they can remember the lessons that these characters had and come back to the book.
I think another cool thing, Gabe, is that a lot of the characters slowly through their journeys are learning that the world is not black and white. It's not a binary world we live in. And, there's this infinitude of shades of gray that exist everywhere. And I think that's a lesson that I was starting to learn around the age that, these books are aimed for. And I think that, helps kids to learn that, which is a cool thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I really enjoy what you said, what both of you said. I think talking about topics like forgiveness is not something that we find often in children's media, and as kids grow up, they are going to be faced with situations where things are very uncertain, and I think talking about those subjects in Digital Lizards of Doom with that cool video game action style makes it really accessible. So thank you both so much. I think that's super, super awesome. You are the best. We have about 8 minutes left, so I'm going to go ahead and run through a couple of questions and then open the floor up for a Q&A. So I wanted to ask you all, what strengths do graphic novels bring to classrooms and libraries? All right, Kim.
Well, so as I've mentioned before, where comics are easily accessible by all students, I think the cool thing is that you can do really high-level things with them, with everyone. We actually created a double booking teacher activity guide. I wrote it. It's for free, and it's on our Paper Cuts website. It's standards-based. And so it's really that idea that you can use comics as a vehicle for some really high-level stuff. It was important for us that first and foremost our book be fun, right? It's for entertainment, but I think it's important to note that you can use any text to do high-level things in the classroom, particularly because of this visual medium. It's accessible for everyone. So I think that's the strength that we all inherently share is that visual component. You can do high-level things with it. So yeah, we do have that free classroom activity guide that's on the Paper Cuts website for double booking.
Yeah, thank you so much. And Stephanie?
I know we don't have a lot of time, but I also want to note on the website there are coloring pages, there are Digital Lizards of Doom Valentines for our young adult line, which we're not talking about. There is a perfect pasta recipe for one of our more food-focused books, Voyage de Gourmet. Books are always a medium of community. In my opinion, I think I was genuinely raised by librarians, libraries, classrooms. I spent so much time after school hanging out with the cool English teachers, with the librarians. I had so many late books, and I had to beg my librarians to let me check out one more because I promised I would return them after I read them all. They just looked really cool. So our books have activities inside of them. Our books engage readers as readers and talk to them as they are. But we also have extra materials that range from classroom guides to coloring pages to tabletop role-playing games, music. Well, the music isn't on the website, it's on YouTube, and Spotify. But there are just so many different aspects and components to play with in the classroom and libraries through our books.
Thank you so much. And Dan?
I think a lot of kids, when they pick up a big, dense tome of words that's not suited for their learning style, it doesn't interest them. I think a graphic novel is the net that catches a lot of those kids that aren't interested in a dense reading experience. And, that's totally fine. There's something for everybody out there, and graphic novels are a great way to, appease those learners.
All right, thank you. And my last question for today, who was your favorite educator and or librarian growing up?
On my end, it would be Mrs. Taylor, my third grade English teacher. She believed in me as a reader, and she let me read adult Star Wars novels when everyone else told me no.
I didn't necessarily have a librarian. I traveled a lot. Like, my parents never stayed in one place too long. But when we came to Phoenix, there was a local comic book store, and these two brothers ran this comic book store, Gary Hughes and Bob Hughes, and they would loan every kid who came in there. They'd be like, "Oh, you want to read something? Here, I'm gonna let you read Swamp Thing, or I'm gonna let you read this." And they were always like encouraging us to read. So sometimes it's not a librarian or a teacher, it could be the local comic book store. And that's what really got me into reading, was these guys like taking the time out of their day and actually showing me things and like sparking my imagination to more than just this. And it led me on to reading bigger and better books.
I had a teacher in 4th grade, Mrs. Chamberlain, that had like a little mini library in her classroom. And I always gravitated to really weird stuff. She had a college mythology textbook, a Greek mythology textbook, and I picked it up and she's like, I don't think you want to read that. And I was like, no, I want to read this. And I read through the entire thing, and as soon as I started reading it, she became very encouraging and was like, man, Dan's really doing this. So yeah, keep going. Tell me what you're getting out of this. And we did little book talks every so often. And she's like, wow, you're actually absorbing this stuff. I'm proud of you, dude. So that encouragement led me to, read a million other things after that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Mine would be my English teacher, Mrs. Cherry. She, very similar situation actually. She wanted me to read, I think it was Heart of Darkness or something like that. And I was just like, I read the back and I'm like, nah, I'm not interested. And she's like, well, what do you want to read? And she like gave me a bunch of options, and I picked Beowulf, because it was an English, half the book was an English translation, and then the other half was, after you read that version, it was a direct English translation. So she's like, if you read this, I want you to read both and like do a report on it. And I think very early on, I should not have been reading that book. Not even, oh my gosh, not at all. But after I read that book, I mean, I was already interested in mythology and fantasy and stuff, so that when she told me, she's like, yeah, we don't even really know who originally wrote this story. It's been handed down and changed so many times. I'm like, whoa, I thought that was so cool. So just that wonder of reading something that, and she explained that to me very clearly. This is handed down. People were sitting on rocks or in a boat or around a fire having this story that you're reading now, thousands of years later. So I just thought that was really cool. So thank you, Mrs. Cherry.
For me, I think I have a lot of teachers and librarians that I really loved, but my teacher, Mrs. Pam Peterson, told me in December of 2011, if I started a reading log, I would be so grateful to her years later. And so I think December 12th of 2011, I started a physical reading log in a spiral-bound 90-page notebook. And to this day, I do keep a reading log. It is very different than it was when I started in 2011. I went through so many different phases and styles. It is now color-coded. Based off of if it's a graphic novel or manga, if it's a play, if it's a book and verse, or if it's prose, since I read all of those. But she was like, you will be able to remember every book you read if you write it down, and you will always have that physical copy to flip through. And she was right. I do remember all of those books. She also assigned books based off of assigned books she'd read that were in her classroom that she'd purchased and had for kids to borrow. She would assign one book based off of how she understood our interests and our reading levels, and she gave me the thickest book in that classroom at around 500-something pages, and the faith she had in me was so profoundly moving. I always knew I was going to be in English.
Thank you, Stephanie. And Kim?
My 8th grade English teacher, Mrs. Shadwell, was awesome, rocked my world, and funny enough, she told me one day not to grow up to be an English teacher, so that's exactly what I did. It's exactly what I did.
I actually have an answer for this also, and I don't know would it be okay with you all if I shout out my high school English teacher, Miss Shepard. I was a book lover growing up my entire life, and I actually fell out of love with reading for a little bit in early high school, and she really reconnected me with that, and she was so gracious and so empathetic with the students. I have a very fond memory of that last semester leading up to SAT testing when we were reading The Scarlet Letter, which is dense, and it's iconic, but very dense. So what ended up happening was we did not manage to finish the book in time, and she took it upon herself to do an interpretive dance of the rest of the Scarlet Letter for us to make sure we knew what we were talking about. I did finish the book. I did love it, and I loved it even more with her wonderful dance and her giant sleeves just burned into my memory. So yeah, shout out Miss Shepherd. She was absolutely wonderful. With that, I think we are just about out of time. So I want to invite you all to visit Paper Cuts online, and you can go ahead and check out some of our educational guides as companion pieces to some of the books that we've talked about today. You can also pick up all of these books at the Mad Cave Studios booth over at 241, and in about 15 minutes, we're all gonna rally and party over at the booth and have a pretty big group signing. Yeah? Sound good? All right. So I want to thank you all for coming to join us this early in the morning. I know 9:15 on the last day can be a little tough, so can I have a round of applause for our wonderful panelists, please?
Thank you.
And a round of applause for you all for coming to listen and share as we chatted about middle grade graphic novels this morning. That's not applause. Yeah, woo!
Woo! It's early.
It is early.
It's time for coffee.
And if anybody wants a digital copy of the curriculum, we'll be giving them out over at the booth too. So if you want to come by, and we can just pop it on your phone and you can take a look through it. It's really, really cool. So thank you so much.